Hello everyone, and welcome to a video dedicated on fighting Burnout. Burnout is unfortunately something closely linked to Genshin. In all of the games I've ever played, I've never found a game like Genshin where Burnout is so frequent and so common within the community. And I suppose that is to be expected since the gameplay of Genshin is basically the same since launch. Every day we play for about 30 minutes doing the same tasks over and over again, of which at a certain point have no purpose. And of course there are moments that we play for longer and moments where there's more to do, but outside of that, in regard to the daily gameplay of Genshin, this is basically how it is. And I won't go too much into the lack of purpose or direction in Genshin. Perhaps in another video I can talk about this, but essentially, when you can clear the abyss fairly easily, everything becomes meaningless. There's no purpose in continuing with Genshin, there's nothing to strive towards or work towards. Outside of the story, you've basically beat the game. So it's understandable as to why many feel burnt out. Yet amidst this, as someone who's been playing since November of Genshin's first year, I've been able to still enjoy and stick with Genshin by applying these tips I've learned over the years. These tips are currently helping me get through the burnout I feel, and I'm sure will help you with your burnout. The first step to enjoy Genshin and to avoid burnout is to stop expecting for Hoyoverse to add the things that will make you happy. For example, I'm someone that desperately wants Endgame. It doesn't have to be something akin to the Abyss, but just something that will give more purpose in continuing to grind in Genshin, and just something to look forward to every day, right? So in the past, whenever there was an update livestream, I always entered it hoping and expecting for Endgame, but I would constantly be disappointed since there was no talk about Endgame, and this caused me to be bitter and increase my burnout because I was relying on Hoyoverse to make me happy, of which they basically had no interest to do. If you look at what the devs have been focusing on and what they have said on the topic of Endgame, they basically have no interest whatsoever in Endgame or any other form of permanent content. So when it comes to things that you want added to the game that would improve your experience, don't expect it from Hoyoverse. Now you can absolutely hope for these things and call for Hoyoverse to make changes, and in fact I hope you do since I really want for some changes to happen, but don't expect it. Expecting will only leave you unhappy and worsen your experience with the game since you'll be ultimately hoping for something that won't happen. Endgame is possible in the future, but at least for right now, it's not going to happen. So change your mindset. Doing this will free you from the annoyance and stress that follows from expecting these things, which is what happened to me when I removed these expectations. With this, the responsibility of you enjoying the game and being happy with the game ultimately falls on you, not Hoyoverse. And as odd as it sounds, since of course they're the developers, they're the ones that should be doing these things to improve your experience, combat burnout, and give more purpose to Genshin. But it's clear that they have no interest in doing this, so now you have to find ways to keep things fun and interesting. And the ways to do this is to first start wishing for characters that you find fun or enjoyable. You'll commonly hear people say to wish for 5 stars that are either strong or that will be an upgrade to your account. And though this is sound advice for those starting to the game, I wouldn't recommend this, especially to those later in the game, since wishing for characters that you find fun will drastically increase the fun you experience and will also increase the longevity you have with the game. Think about it. The same daily tasks we do, we find boring and repetitive, but if you were to do these things with a fun character, these tasks would now be much more enjoyable. These things would be actually fun instead of, the sort of mindset that we have with these things where it's just the same old things we do over and over again and that we give very little thought of. Now with this tip, I'm not saying to ignore the meta or that the meta isn't important. What I'm saying is that your top priority should be longevity and fun. The meta won't keep you playing the game, you enjoying it will. So your mindset should be to have as much fun as possible with the game. If you like knowing about the meta and following it, great, but don't let it prevent you from enjoying the game. The next tip is to try the various game modes of Genshin, this being Genius Invocation, the Serena Teapot, or the long-dreaded Abyss. The reason for doing this is that first, it'll change up the daily things you do in Genshin. It won't just be the same boring tasks over and over again. Now you'll have something new to do, and most importantly, it's possible that you'll actually get into one of these game modes, and thus have something to work towards and a new purpose with Genshin. This occurred to me a long time ago with the Serena Teapot. I at first didn't get why many people wanted the teapot, and when I first tried it I didn't like it, but over time I got hooked into it and I found it just really satisfying and interesting to build your own nice looking abode. Within those few months of me getting hooked, I enjoyed the game much more since now I had something to strive for and a new game mode to have fun with. So try one of these game modes. Even if you didn't initially like it, doing this is a win-win situation since you'll have something new to play, you may end up getting into these game modes, and you'll be getting rewards like Prima Gems. Another tip is to build the characters you haven't already. This is something I've been doing frequently, and I really recommend to do this because, like the first tip, it keeps things new. By doing this, you'll have new experiences by building these characters, and beyond this, it's very possible that after you build these units, you'll actually really like them. And with these new units, you'll be able to make some of your current teams much more enjoyable or stronger, or allow for new teams entirely, which is part of this tip, which is to try new teams. This occurred to me with Sucrose. Only recently did I build her, which may come as a surprise to you, but I first got Kazuha and built him, so I didn't think I needed Sucrose. But at a certain point I got kind of bored and I decided, okay, I'll just build her anyways, and only after I built her did I realize just how good she is. She's fun to play, and she's a big upgrade to a good amount of the teams I play. So like the last point, I highly recommend to do this, since with this there's very little to lose. You'll be having new experiences by building these characters, they may upgrade your current teams or allow for new teams entirely, which will enhance your experience with Genshin. The next tip I have is two. The first one is probably the one I recommend the most, which is to play another game on top of Genshin. Genshin is not at all a game meant to be played on its own. With its 30-minute daily content, it's not at all sufficient for a standalone game. If it is the only game you play, you'll have many moments where you want to continue, but you just can't, leading to unhappiness and burnout. Genshin has way too many holes in content to where you literally need another game to fall back on. This is something I've been doing, and in fact, you'll see one of the games I've been playing, it'll either be Yakuza 7 or Judgment. These are Sega games that I've been really enjoying and that I'm really grateful for, just because with them I'm not reliant on Genshin to have fun. You know, when Genshin has its frequent content droughts or those times where you want to continue playing but you just can't because there's no resin, in those times I can avoid that feeling of stress and great disappointment of wanting to continue to play but of course can't, by playing and looking forward to another game instead. With another game, you can accept Genshin for what it is, and you can get the feel that you want from Genshin through another game. Once again, this is not at all to say to make no action in calling for endgame or any of the sort, but for what Genshin currently is, I've really found playing another game to be a good way to avoid burnout and still have fun with Genshin, not just the same game that will ultimately leave me disappointed. And yes, it's sad that we have to go to other games. It'd be great if we could just enjoy and play Genshin as much as we want, but unfortunately this is just how things are. The other tip is to take a break from Genshin entirely. Now, I know this game is the king of fear of missing out. That is actually one of the ways that the game keeps you hooked, right? Everything is temporary, and to that degree, if you do feel bad about this and it really bothers you, maybe just log in every day and do commissions, then leave. But overall, I feel it's very important to take a break from Genshin, just because that will be the thing that will ultimately heal your burnout. Taking a break will allow you to break away from Genshin for a while, where you can be free from the stresses it gives you. And another big pro from taking a break is that you'll lose the familiarity you have with Genshin. Now, what I mean by this is that, you know, when we play Genshin every day, we get so used to it to where all the good things and fun things of Genshin we unconsciously ignore, since we've already seen it, right? We're used to these things. So taking a break will give you a fresh mind and a fresh perspective to where when you do return to Genshin, you'll be able to enjoy the game more. And that is all the tips I have for you today. I hope these tips help you, and I hope you get over the burnout you feel. Believe me, I know how burnout feels, especially with Genshin. It's a sad thing, since Genshin should be giving us happiness, but instead disappointment and stress. And that is also the reason why I haven't been uploading as much. I've been feeling burnt out, and there just overall just hasn't been a whole lot to cover. And don't worry, I'm not going to be leaving Genshin. I'll definitely get back to uploading regularly. And by the way, if you do have any suggestions on any videos you'd like me to make, please suggest them to me into the comments. Thank you all for watching. Take care. And thank you all for watching once again.